far beyond the borders of known space, on the edge of the uncharted sector, sat Outpost Eco-7. It was small, a lone speck of metal and glass among the stars, but it served as humanity's watchful eye against the endless darkness. The crew, a mix of scientists, engineers, and security personnel, spent their days monitoring deep space communications, mapping asteroid belts, and scanning for anomalies. That it was during a routine sweep of the communication channels that something unusual appeared. A faint signal flickered across the screens, a faint SOS, broken and distorted, almost as if the universe itself was trying to hide it. Lieutenant Mara Voss, the outpost's communications officer, leaned closer to the console, her brow furrowed. This isn't coming from any known ship, she said, her voice steady but low, almost afraid to disturb the silence. Commander Real Torres, a veteran of space operations, stepped over, his eyes narrowing at the display. Run it through the filters. Could be a glitch. Mara shook her head. It's not a glitch. Listen, the speakers crackled. The signal was weak, fragmented, but one thing was clear, a voice, urgent and desperate, cut through the static. Help, death, approaching no time. The words were fragmented, chopped, incomplete, but the meaning was unmistakable. Deathworlders. Torres stiffened. That name alone carried weight. Deathworlders were legends of terror, a species humanity had only heard of in scattered reports and old, encrypted logs. Stories described them as unstoppable, merciless, and incomprehensibly powerful. Few had lived to tell the tale of encounters, and those who had never truly described what they saw. Mara's fingers flew over the console, trying to stabilize the signal. It's faint, but I'm pulling what I can. They're sending coordinates, somewhere near the Auriga cluster. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the Auriga cluster. It was a dangerous sector, filled with rogue asteroids, radiation storms, and areas of space that hadn't been mapped in decades. Most ships avoided it entirely. Torres rubbed his jaw. If that signal is real, and is warning us, then whoever sent it is already in trouble. The crew exchanged worried glances. Dr. Ashan Malik, the station's science officer, broke the silence. We need to respond. At least acknowledge the SOS. It could be a ship or a research team trapped out there. Agreed, Torres said. Mara, send a reply. Keep it brief. Keep it safe. But keep monitoring. Mara's hands hesitated over the keys. The signal was weak, sometimes barely more than static, but every few seconds a word or phrase came through. Fleet, approaching fast, cannot hold, must warn. The words made the hair on the back of Mara's neck stand up. The urgency, the fear, the almost human-like panic in the fragmented message. It was more than just a warning. It was a scream in the dark. Suddenly the lights on the communication array flickered. A shadow moved across the console, long and shapeless. Mara's heart skipped. She spun around, but the room was empty. Did you see that? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Torres's eyes scanned the array. It's probably just a glitch in the sensors, he said, though his tone lacked conviction. But Mara knew better. Something was out there. Something watching. Something waiting. The signal continued. Fragmented but insistent. So is death. Do not. Coordinates. Warn others. The words cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Then, for a brief moment, there was silence. A silence so complete it felt as though the stars themselves had stopped moving. Dr. Malik leaned forward. It's gone. The signal. It's gone. Torres rubbed his temples. Or it's hiding. We can't assume it's over. Mara stared at the console. The coordinates had already started to blink. They were leaving a trail, like breadcrumbs through the void, pointing somewhere dangerous. Commander, Mara said, her voice trembling slightly. I don't think this SOS was meant for us. I think it was meant to warn us. Torres's face hardened. Then we need to prepare. Seal the station. Lock down non-essential areas. Everyone stays alert. Outside, the reinforced windows of Eco-7 space stretched endlessly, black and silent, but the crew could feel its sense of being watched, of something massive moving just beyond the edges of their senses. The faint SOS had been only the beginning. And somewhere in the shadows a presence stirred. Something vast, something ancient, something unstoppable. The Deathworlders were coming. Mara couldn't shake the image of the shadow she'd seen earlier. It had moved like it belonged, like it had been waiting for them to hear the signal. Her fingers hovered over the console, unable to shake the sense of dread that had settled in her chest. The SOS had awoken something that would not ignore it, and whatever it was coming closer. The crew of Eco-7 had no idea how close, and as the communication array flickered once more, a cold thought crossed Mara's mind. They were no longer the watchers. They were being watched. The silence of deep space was broken by the soft hum of Eco-7's sensors. The crew had spent the past hours monitoring the coordinates left by the SOS. The signal had vanished, but the unease it left behind clung to the station like a shadow. Every beep of the scanner, every flicker of the lights, seemed louder, sharper, heavier. Lieutenant Mara Voss sat at the communications console, eyes glued to the monitor. The coordinates led to an empty sector, or so it seemed. Commander, she said, voice tight with tension, I'm picking up something. Movement. Very faint, but it's there. Something big. Commander Real Torres came over, peering at the screen. The readings were confusing clusters of energy signatures moving in formation, too precise to be natural. Are those ships? Torres asked. Mara swallowed. Yes, but they're not human. They're fast and massive. I've never seen anything like this. The room went quiet. Even the engineers and scientists, who were used to anomalies, felt a chill. The name Deathworlder had already been whispered in fear earlier, and now, signs of their fleet were approaching. Dr. Ashan Malik, the science officer, leaned over Mara's shoulder. They're scanning us. I can't tell if they know we're here yet, but their sensors are active, intelligent. It's like they can feel us before we even move. Torres ran a hand through his hair. Prepare the station defenses. Shields up. Lockdown protocols, and everyone, stay calm. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, though tension hummed beneath every action. Mara's fingers flew across the console, trying to stabilize the remaining fragments of the SOS. The message replayed itself in broken snippets. Cannot hold. Approaching fast. Suddenly the lights flickered, and the station shuddered. Sensors screamed alarms. They're here, whispered Mara. Outside the reinforced windows, faint shapes appeared. At first, they were just shadows, dark blots against the stars. Then, slowly, the forms became clear. Sleek, black vessels with jagged edges, moving in perfect coordination. Their sheer size was staggering, larger than any human battleship, their hulls covered in strange reflective plating. Torres clenched his fists. Deathworlders. The word tasted bitter on his tongue. The first scout ship moved closer to the station, scanning its surroundings with beams of blue light. It was as if it were searching for a single target, for something hidden within Echo-7. Mara single quotes S heart raced. They're scanning the station. They know we're here. The fleet remained silent, moving like predators. There was no warning, no hailing signal, no communication, just a slow, deliberate advance of something ancient and unstoppable. Dr. Malik's voice trembled slightly. Commander, their shields. They're almost impenetrable. Any direct attack could fail. They're designed for destruction, for survival, nothing else. Torres nodded grimly. We aren't attacking, we're defending, and watching. Everyone, stay at your stations. Any sudden moves and it's over. Mara continued to monitor the signal frequencies. The SOS fragments were becoming more urgent in her mind, each pause in the message now seeming like a warning. She could almost hear the fear of whoever sent it. Whoever it was, might already be dead. The scout ship fired a single pulse into the void. It wasn't aimed at Echo-7, but it illuminated the station's surface in brilliant, alien light. Shadows danced along the walls inside the control room. A strange pressure filled the air, as though the fleet's presence alone was bending reality. Mara shivered. Commander, there's a pattern in their movement. They're circling us, studying us, waiting. Torres's jaw tightened. Then we wait but stay ready. Any breach, any sudden attack, we respond immediately. Minutes passed like hours. The fleet did not retreat, nor did it advance further. It was as if time itself had slowed, leaving the crew trapped in a web of tension and fear. Then, unexpectedly, the fleet made a move. One scout ship detached from the formation and moved closer to the station. Mara's console beeped frantically. Commander, it's scanning the communications array. Before anyone could react, the shadow Mara had seen earlier in the array flickered across the console again this time. It was more defined, almost alive. A strange ripple of energy, like darkness folding into itself, passed through the room. The lights flickered, and the monitors showed distorted images. Everyone, fall back. Torres barked, but the crew was frozen in place, eyes locked on the advancing scout. The alien ship stopped just outside the window, silent. Then, through the station's monitors, a strange interference pattern appeared. The faint SOS fragments reappeared, but this time the voice was clearer. Warning, cannot survive. Approaching fast. Escape. Mara's hands trembled as she replayed the message. She felt a cold dread settle in her chest. Whoever sent the SOS had known what was coming. And now, the Deathworlders had found them to. Torres turned to the crew. Prepare for boarding protocols. Shields on full. If they breach, we fight to the last. And remember, we survive for the warning to reach others. The scout ship made a slow, deliberate maneuver, positioning itself like a predator over its prey. Outside, the rest of the fleet held its formation, a dark, silent promise of destruction. Mara stared at the shadowy figures moving in perfect coordination, each one larger and more terrifying than she had imagined. The fragmented SOS, the unknown presence in the array, the alien fleet, all connected in one terrifying reality. The Deathworlders had arrived, and Echo-7 was their first contact. The silence of space shattered with the first violent tremor. Echo-7 shuddered under the invisible weight of the Deathworlder fleet, as if the vacuum itself had become a hammer. The scout ship, poised like a predator moments ago, now advanced with terrifying speed. Impact sensors registering unknown energy field, Lieutenant Mara Voss whispered, her fingers gripping the console. The array screens flickered as alarms screamed. Lights strobed across the room, red and urgent. Commander reeled. Torres's voice cut through the panic. Battle stations, all crew to defensive positions. Seal the airlocks. Shields at maximum. The engineers and security officers rushed to obey, but the station's corridors were already trembling from unseen forces. A low, resonating hum filled the station, vibrating through the metal floors and walls. It wasn't sound. It was something more primal, a pressure that made hearts pound and minds scream. Outside the reinforced windows, the Deathworlder scout ship extended strange protrusions, dark tendrils of energy reaching toward the station. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if feeling the structure, testing its defenses. Mara's console displayed the readings: energy absorption, material penetration, and something worse, an almost intelligent assessment of the station's weak points. "They're studying us," Dr. Eshin Malik muttered, pale and wide-eyed. "They're learning faster than any human could." Torres clenched his fists. "Then we show them we're not easy prey. Fire at will. Focus on the scouts. Don't waste energy on the larger fleet yet." Weapons officers fired the station's plasma turrets. Beams of bright blue light lashed out, striking the approaching scout ship. Sparks and energy arcs danced across the monitor. The scout reeled slightly but did not falter. It seemed almost amused, moving like a shadow weaving through their attacks. Mara's hands flew across the console, trying to re-establish communications. The SOS fragments kept playing in her mind. "Cannot hold. Approaching fast. Warn others." Each fragment was a warning, echoing like a ghost in the control room. Whoever had sent it. They had known this moment would come. Suddenly, another tremor ran through Eco 7. This one was deeper, harsher. Mara and the others looked outside. The scout ship had called reinforcements. Shadows of the massive death fleet appeared over the horizon, moving with terrifying precision. Their hulls glinted in the starlight, jagged, alien, and impossibly large. "They're coming in closer." "Full assault formation," Mara whispered, took a deep breath, steadying himself. "All stations report. How are shields holding?" 42%. "Dropping fast," shouted an engineer. "Hull integrity is at 65. Brace for impact." Torres barked. The first strike came without warning. Dark energy pulses slammed into a Kosovan's outer hull. The station groaned and shuddered as metal screamed under the force. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and lights flickered. Crew members stumbled but scrambled back to their stations. Mara's eyes widened at the readings. "The shields there, not just cutting through our defenses. They're adapting. Every pulse makes them stronger." Dr. Malik's hands flew across his console. "They're learning from our reactions. Each time we counter, they adjust instantly. It's like they think." A second strike hit, and a section of the station's outer hull buckled inward. Torrential alarms rang out. Fire sprinklers hissed as smoke filled the corridors. Crew members shouted over the chaos. Torres grabbed Mara's shoulder. "Keep monitoring the scouts. Track everything they do. Every weakness we find is a chance to survive." The Deathworlder scout ship pressed its tendrils against the station, and for a moment, it seemed almost alive. Energy pulses surged along the appendages, cracking metal and sending sparks flying. The station's internal lights flickered, and the hum of the Deathworlder energy was deafening in the enclosed control room. Mara noticed a strange pattern. The scout ship wasn't just attacking it, was mapping their movements, learning where the crew responded slowest, predicting reactions. Her stomach tightened. "Commander, they're smarter than any human fleet. They know our defenses before we can even move." Outside, smaller Deathworlder ships began to swarm, moving like a tide of shadows. Each vessel fired energy beams that tore through Eco 7's outer panels, leaving scorch marks and jagged holes in the station's once pristine armor. "Shields at 20%, screamed an engineer. "Hull integrity at 40. Torres's voice remained firm, cutting through panic. "Focus, target the scout ship, use everything you've got." But the scout ship didn't falter. Its energy tendrils lashed again, and this time, the outer hull of Eco 7 cracked, sending shards of metal into the vacuum. The station trembled as if in pain, and alarms screamed like a warning siren from the stars. Mara's fingers hovered over the console, heart racing. The SOS had been right. There was no way to hold them back. Not alone. Not with what they had. Then, as the crew prepared for the next wave, a shadow flickered across the control room. It was the same presence Mara had seen before, moving between the consoles, almost alive. Her eyes widened. "Commander, it's here again. That shadow. It's moving through the station." Torres followed her gaze. "Stay focused. Whatever it is, we survive first. Then we understand." Outside, the Deathworlder scout released another pulse, and the station's shields shuddered under the impact. Sparks and debris floated past the windows. Mara pressed her hands to the console, trying to stabilize readings. The fleet's strategy was relentless, overwhelming, and terrifyingly precise. A voice crackled through the static on the communications array. The SOS fragments replayed one final time, clearer than before. "They see you, cannot hide, survive, if..." And then, silence. The fleet was no longer just outside. It had begun its true assault. Eco 7 trembled as the first breach began. Smoke, sparks, and the scent of ozone filled the air. Mara's heart pounded as she gripped the console. The station was under attack. The Deathworlders were here, and survival was no longer a hope. It was a fight. Eco 7 trembled. Sparks rained down from the fractured ceiling panels, and smoke curled through the corridors. The Deathworlder fleet's assault had already battered the outer defenses, and now smaller assault ships began breaching the station's perimeter. The hum of alien energy filled the air, a constant reminder that they were under siege by something far beyond human comprehension. Lieutenant Mara Voss rushed from the control room to the engineering bay. Her boots clanged against the metal floor, echoing through corridors slick with coolant leaks. Crew members shouted orders and warnings, their voices nearly drowned out by the screeching alarms. "We can't hold them much longer," yelled Engineer Talia Cross, her hands flying over a console. "The outer hull is failing, and the shields, they're down to 15%. Commander Real Torres appeared beside her, face grim. "Then we do what we must. Mara, get the communications array stabilized. We're sending a backup SOS to any nearby human fleets. If this station falls, someone must know what's coming." Mara nodded and sprinted back to the control room, her mind racing. She pulled up the SOS channels, her fingers moving faster than ever. But the Deathworlder interference made it nearly impossible. Each attempt to transmit the distress call was met with static, bursts of energy, and sudden system shutdowns. "They're jamming us," Mara said through gritted teeth. "Every signal we send is being blocked or distorted." Torres ran a hand through his hair. "Then we improvise. Dr. Malik, any suggestions?" Dr. Ishan Malik, pale and tense, leaned over a console, scanning the station's ancient archives. "There might be a way," he said slowly. "In the old records, there's mention of a hidden weapon, left behind by the first explorers in this sector. It's powerful, but dangerous. Using it could destroy part of the station. Or worse." Torres's eyes narrowed. "How powerful are we talking?" Malik hesitated. "Enough to take out several of their ships at once. Maybe even force the fleet to retreat, but it's unstable. No one knows for sure if it will work as intended." Mara felt a chill run down her spine. The SOS had warned them, the fleet had arrived, and now their only chance was a weapon no one truly understood. "We don't have a choice," she whispered. Torres nodded. "Then we prepare. Get everyone to safe zones. Non-essential personnel to emergency shelters. Mara, Malik, guide me to this weapon." The crew moved quickly, adrenaline pushing fear aside. Eco 7's corridors where chaotic fires erupted, metal groaned, and the occasional flash of alien energy struck from outside. Security teams engaged smaller Deathworlder scouts that had breached sections of the station, but every battle was costly. Mara and Malik guided Torres through narrow maintenance tunnels, following the ancient schematics displayed on old terminals. The air was thick with smoke, and the metallic temps of ozone stung their noses. Shadows from the flickering lights danced across the walls, making the station seem alive, as if it were mourning the coming destruction. Finally, they arrived at a reinforced chamber, hidden behind layers of forgotten locks and access codes. Inside, a strange device pulsed faintly with a blue energy. It was enormous, almost organic in shape, with cables and conduits running like veins along its surface. "This is it," Malik said, voice trembling. "The weapon we don't know exactly how it works. The records are incomplete. But if we can activate it, it might buy us time." Torres studied it carefully. "Time, that's all we need. Mara, can you interface with it?" Mara nodded and stepped forward. Her hands hovered over the control panel, reading the strange symbols. "It's responding, but it wants a power source. We'll need to draw from the station's core. That could overload the systems." Malik swallowed hard. "If we do this wrong, we might destroy Eco 7 with the Deathworlders still outside." Torres's jaw tightened. Better to risk the station than let the fleet reach inhabited space. "Mara, Malik, do it. I'll coordinate defenses." As Mara and Malik worked, the station shook violently. Through reinforced windows, they could see the scout ship probing the outer hull. Its dark tendrils pulsed, preparing another strike. Sparks cascaded across the viewport as smaller ships darted in and out, testing the station's defenses. Mara's fingers flew over the controls. Power levels at 70%, 80, almost there. Suddenly a loud explosion rocked the chamber. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling. "They've breached the lower maintenance corridors," shouted Malik. Torres's voice came over the comms. "We hold them off. Fire everything. Focus on the scout ship closest to the core." Mara took a deep breath. Connecting now. Blue energy surged through the weapon, spreading along the conduits, pulsing faster with each second. The room hummed with a low, vibrating tone, like the heartbeat of a living creature. Lights flickered across the chamber, casting long shadows that seemed to twist and stretch in the smoke-filled air. Outside, the Deathworlder scout ship recoiled slightly as arcs of energy raced across its hull. The smaller assault ships hesitated in formation, sensing the sudden surge from the station. Torres gritted his teeth. "Hold them. Just hold them until the weapon fully engages." The weapon's pulse grew stronger, brighter, until it illuminated the entire chamber. Mara could feel its energy against her skin, vibrating through her bones. She glanced at Moloch. His face was pale, eyes wide with awe and fear. And then, silence. Outside, the fleet faltered. The scout ship closest to Eco 7 screeched and pulled back. The smaller ships wavered in formation. It was a temporary victory, but enough to give the crew a chance to breathe, to regroup, to survive. For now, Torres exhaled heavily. It's working, but only just. We've bought time. Mara, Malik, stay at the controls. We need to keep it stable. Mara nodded, hands trembling slightly. The SOS fragments echoed in her mind. Cannot hold. Approaching fast. Warn others. The warning was not over. The Deathworlders had been held back for now, but their presence loomed like a shadow over Echo-7. And somewhere in the dark corridors of the station, the same strange shadow Mara had seen before flickered again. Moving silently, watching, waiting, the fleet was relentless. And this desperate measure was only the beginning. Eco 7 shuddered again, though this time it was not from the Deathworlders striking the station. The hidden weapon they had activated thrummed with energy, its pulses shaking the station from core to outer hull. Blue arcs of light rippled along the conduits, casting long shadows that danced across the smoke-streaked walls. The crew watched in awe and fear, unsure if the device would save them or destroy them all. Lieutenant Mara Voss stayed at the control panel, hands hovering over the interface. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the raw energy radiating through the room. Dr. Eshan Malik crouched beside her, muttering calculations and warnings under his breath. This weapon, it's unlike anything we've ever seen, Malik said, eyes wide as he scanned the readouts. It's not just energy, it's almost alive. It responds to thought, to intent. If we misuse it, it could consume Eco 7 entirely. Mara swallowed hard. Then we need to be precise. Every pulse, every surge, it has to hit the fleet exactly as we intend. Commander Real Torres stepped closer, surveying the monitors showing the Deathworlder fleet beyond the station. The scout ships had fallen back slightly, harried by the weapon's energy. But the massive vessels of the main fleet remained ominously in formation, and on the edges of the sensors, the silhouette Mara had noticed earlier loomed a massive, incomprehensible shape. The flagship time is running out, Torres said. The fleet will adapt. We hold them off for a few more minutes, maybe hours. Then we either win, or Eco 7 is lost. Mara nodded, focusing back on the controls. Each pulse they released from the weapon sent ripples across space, arcs of energy slashing through the void. Scout ships faltered, some completely disabled, their hulls smoking. But with every victory came a cross-sections of the station trembled violently. Panels buckled, and alarms screamed warnings of structural failures. Dr. Malik ran his hands through his hair. It's working, but every pulse destabilizes the station further. We might not survive using it at full power. Then we have no choice, Torres said grimly. If the fleet reaches the station fully operational, we won't survive anyway. Outside, the Deathworlders began adapting. Their jagged ships rotated and maneuvered with precision, avoiding the weapon's energy arcs as if they anticipated each strike. Mara felt a cold chill. The SOS fragments were right. The fleet was intelligent, relentless, and horrifyingly fast in learning from human tactics. Suddenly, the flagship's silhouette grew larger on the sensors. It moved closer, cutting through the void with a deliberate, unstoppable momentum. Its presence seemed to bend space itself, a shadow so massive it blotted out starlight. Mara could feel the hum of energy in the station increase, as if the weapon itself sensed the new threat. Malik glanced at her. That ship, it's beyond anything we can handle directly. If it engages, Eco 7 will be destroyed instantly. Torres's eyes narrowed. Then we hit it first, and hit it hard. Mara ramped the weapon to maximum output. Focus on the flagship. Mara's fingers flew over the console, sweat running down her temples. She could feel the weapon pulsing beneath her hands, a living thing almost aware of her intent. Energy surged across conduits, shaking the chamber, rattling the metal walls. The station groaned in protest. Stabilizing, almost there, ready to release, Mara whispered. A moment later, the weapon discharged. A massive pulse of blue-white energy erupted from Eco 7, stretching across space toward the Deathworlder flagship. The beam split into multiple arcs, wrapping around the enemy ship, striking at every weak point the sensors could detect. On the monitors, the flagship faltered. Its massive hull flickered as energy tore across its surface. Smaller Deathworlder ships scattered, breaking formation. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the fleet would retreat entirely. Then, a shockwave slammed into Eco 7. The station groaned, alarms blaring louder than ever. Sparks cascaded from the ceilings, and the weapon's pulse surged back against the station. Mara staggered but held her position. It's fighting us back, Malik shouted, pointing at the reader. The weapon, it's unstable. It doesn't just attack, it consumes everything around it. If we don't control it, Torres's face hardened. Then we control it. Keep it focused on the flagship. Hold nothing back. Mara's hands danced across the controls, guiding the weapon's energy, narrowing the beam, keeping it precise. The flagship's sensors began to flicker under the onslaught, and the smaller ships hesitated. But the strain on Eco 7 was immense. Sections of the station's outer hull cracked under the energy feedback. Smoke filled the corridors, and the low hum of the weapon reverberated through every floor. Through the chaos, Mara noticed something disturbing. The shadow that had been flickering through the station since the SOS appeared again, moving unnervingly along the corridors. She swallowed hard. Its presence was almost alive, aware of the weapon's power, watching the crew's every move. Outside, the flagship staggered under the assault, but it was far from destroyed. Its sensors glowed, and a pulse of energy emanated outward, neutralizing the weaker arcs of the weapon. Mara gasped. Fighting back, Torres gritted his teeth. Then we finish this, Malik. Assist Mara. Every calculation, every adjustment, do it now. The two worked together, guiding the weapon's energy with precision. Each pulse synchronized to strike the flagship's weak points. Slowly, the massive ship began to falter. Sparks of energy ripped across its hull, systems shutting down one by one. The smaller fleet, sensing the flagship's vulnerability, began to retreat slightly, breaking formation. The room was silent except for the weapon's pulsing hum and the alarm's screaming warnings. Mara's fingers hovered over the final control panel. The SOS fragments echoed in her mind. Cannot hold. Approaching fast. Warn others. Then, the flagship shuddered violently, finally losing its stance. Its enormous shadow drifted away from the station, leaving only smaller ships, scattered and confused. Mara exhaled, her hands shaking from exhaustion. Torres placed a hand on her shoulder. We did it. For now. But the fleet is not gone, and something tells me the worst is yet to come. Malik nodded slowly. The weapon. It saved us, but at what cost? Eco 7 has taken immense strain, and whatever that shadow is, it's still here. Mara looked at the shadow flickering across the control room once again. It moved silently, almost sentient. Her heart sank. They had survived the Deathworlder flagship, but survival in this darkness came with new questions and new dangers. The SOS had been only the beginning. The hum of the hidden weapon faded, leaving Eco 7 shivering in the aftermath of its destructive pulse. Sparks flickered along the walls, and smoke curled through the corridors like a silent warning. For a moment, the crew believed they had survived, but space outside the station was alive with tension. The Deathworlder fleet had pulled back, but their retreat was not defeat. Their ships loitered beyond the sensors range, forming a perimeter, calculating their next move. The flagship had vanished, but the remaining vessels were far from harmless. Every movement seemed deliberate, intelligent, like they were learning from Eco 7's defenses, anticipating every human reaction. Lieutenant Mara Voss scanned the monitors, her brow furrowed. They're studying us. Every adjustment we make, they adapt. It's like they're thinking faster than we can. Commander Real Torres nodded grimly. Then we think faster. Every action has to be smarter, more precise. Everyone, this is no longer just survival. This is a battle of wits. Dr. Eshan Malik leaned over a console, analyzing the fleet's movements. They're probing our weaknesses. Slowly, methodically. But look at this pattern, he said, pointing to a series of energy fluctuations. They aren't just attacking, they're learning from our reactions, anticipating our strategies. If we keep reacting, we'll be one step behind forever. Mara swallowed hard. So we don't react. We predict. Torres's jaw tightened. Exactly. We set traps. We manipulate their perceptions. Every move we make has to be deliberate, calculated. The crew sprang into action. Eco 7's corridors were tense but focused. Security teams repositioned turrets and shields, placing energy decoys in key sections of the station. Engineers rerouted power to mislead sensor readings, creating false vulnerabilities. Every system, every console, became part of a larger planar human strategy designed to confuse the Deathworlders. Outside, the fleet responded. Scout ships circled, probing for weak points, firing short energy pulses that tested the station's defenses. Mara watched their patterns, predicting their moves. Turrets ready. Fire when they cluster, she commanded. The turrets discharged, striking the scout ships' hulls. Some were destroyed, others scrambled to new positions. The fleet's adaptations were rapid, but the crew had anticipated several of them, staying one step ahead. And then, a new variable appeared. A signal flickered through Eco 7's long dormant sensors, something unfamiliar. Alien, yet distinctly artificial. The monitors displayed a cascade of energy patterns that did not match the Deathworlder's fleet. Dr. Malik's eyes widened. I don't understand. This signal, it's not theirs. It's old, ancient, possibly from the first explorers in this sector. Mara stared at the reader. It's alive. It's guiding our systems, helping us. Torres's expression sharpened. Then we follow it. If it wants to help, we take it. Every second counts. The mysterious signal moved through the station, interfacing with Eco 7's systems. Shield outputs stabilized, turret targeting refined, energy flow rerouted with precision. Slowly, the tide of the battle began to shift. The Deathworlders responded with aggression, firing concentrated pulses at sections of the station. Mara's fingers danced over the console, guided by the mysterious signal. Turrets fired with perfect accuracy. Shields adapted in real time, and energy feedback from the weapon seemed to anticipate each strike. Outside, the fleet faltered. Scout ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The remaining vessels hesitated, their movements cautious and measured. The Deathworlders were intelligent, yes, but now, they were facing a strategy beyond mere reaction. A human mind, guided by something ancient and powerful, was leading them into a trap. The shadow in the corridors flickered again. Mara noticed it as she scanned the interior cameras. Unlike before, it seemed less threatening, more observant, almost like it was approving of their tactics, silently guiding them. Dr. Malik muttered, This is incredible. The signal, it's using the weapon and the station itself to fight. It's like it wants us to survive. Torres tightened his grip on the console. Then we keep pushing. Every advantage counts. We've bought time, but we can't let up. The fleet will learn again, and when it does, we need to be ready. Mara's eyes flicked between the monitors, the Deathworlder fleet, and the pulsing signal weaving through the station. For the first time since the SOS arrived, hope mingled with fear. They had survived the initial assault, repelled the flagship, and were now turning the tide. But the challenge was far from over. Outside, the remaining ships were regrouping. Their movements were deliberate, cautious, but Mara could see the intelligence in every calculation. They were planning something, perhaps a coordinated attack that could overwhelm even the mysterious signal guiding Echo-7. Suddenly, a pulse of energy from the unknown signal illuminated the station's corridors, revealing the shadow in stark detail. It was humanoid, vaguely, yet its form seemed fluid, almost ghost-like, moving with intent. It stopped near Mara's console, and for a heartbeat, their eyes met. A strange understanding passed between them. The shadow was not an enemy, it was a guide, an ally. Silent but powerful, Mara's heart raced. It's helping us. All this time, it's been waiting, watching, and now, it's guiding us. Torres's voice came over the comms. Then we trust it. Every move we make, every pulse of the weapon, every turret and shield adjustment. Follow the pattern. Let's win this battle of wits. The Deathworlders launched another wave, faster and more precise than before. But Mara, guided by the signal, anticipated each strike. The turrets fired with deadly accuracy. The shields absorbed pulses that would have destroyed lesser stations. And the hidden weapon pulsed at exactly the right moment to repel the fleet. For a brief moment, time seemed to hold its breath. Echo-7 and its crew, with the mysterious signal guiding them, were outmaneuvering one of the deadliest fleets humanity had ever faced. But Mara knew the warning in the SOS fragment still echoed, cannot hold. Approaching fast. Warn others. The battle had shifted, but the war was far from over. And somewhere beyond the stars, larger forces waited, unseen, calculating, and patient. Echo-7 trembled again, though this time the tremors were different. They were no longer caused solely by the Deathworlders' attacks. The mysterious signal that had appeared in the station's systems pulsed steadily now, a steady rhythm that seemed almost alive, almost sentient. It interfaced directly with the station's hidden weapon, guiding its energy precisely where it was needed. Lieutenant Mara Vorse sat at the console, her eyes glued to the monitors. It's stabilizing the weapon, she whispered. Every pulse is hitting exactly where it needs to. It's like it knows what to do before I do. Dr. Eshin Malik stood beside her, awe on his face. This signal, it's ancient. It was left here to protect the sector. It predicted this moment. Or maybe it just waited for someone capable enough to use it. Commander Real Torres's eyes scanned the monitors showing the Deathworlder fleet. Their remaining ships were hesitant now, retreating slightly as the weapon pulsed in perfect coordination. Then we use it. Every second counts. Mara, Malik, guide the weapon and me. If we can focus it on their central formation, we can break their fleet. Mara's fingers flew across the console. Energy arcs flared outward, striking the Deathworlder vessels. The scout ships faltered, some spinning out of control, while the larger ships shifted defensively. The fleet had learned from the first assaults, but the weapon, guided by the signal, now anticipated their adaptations. Outside, the shadow that had been flickering through the station appeared again. Mara could feel its presence moving through the corridors, almost watching, almost approving. Unlike before, it did not frighten her. Instead, it gave her a strange sense of confidence, a reassurance that the station had an ally. Dr. Malik's hands flew over a secondary console, rerouting power to reinforce the shields. The AI signal, if we can maintain this rhythm, we might actually turn the tide. The Deathworlders are strong, but they're not invincible. Mara's eyes widened as she noticed a pattern in the fleet's movements. Their formation is breaking. The scouts are retreating toward the flagship, but the rest of the fleet is hesitating. We can isolate the flagship if we push now. Torres nodded grimly. Then we push. Full weapon output. Mara, Malik, coordinate with the signal. Every pulse counts. The station's hidden weapon roared to life. Energy arcs expanded outward, striking multiple ships simultaneously. The Deathworlders' fleet was caught off guard. The scouts that had previously been relentless now faltered, some colliding with each other as the energy arcs disrupted their maneuvers. The main ships struggled to maintain formation. Mara held her breath, her hands steady despite the tremors beneath her feet. Focus on the flagship now. The weapon pulsed with incredible precision, a blue-white lance of energy that struck the massive flagship directly. The monitors displayed cracks across the alien vessel's hull, systems failing one by one. Sparks and energy cascades raced along its surface, and for the first time, the massive ship seemed vulnerable. Outside, the smaller fleet scattered, following the flagship's retreat. Eco 7 had gained the upper hand, but Mara knew better than to celebrate. The Deathworlders were relentless. They adapted, learned, and would return stronger. Suddenly, the shadow flickered closer. Mara felt a presence behind her, a warmth amid the chaos. The silhouette was humanoid but not entirely solid, moving like liquid. It reached toward the weapon's interface, and Mara realized it was fine-tuning the energy pulses even further. The signal wasn't just guiding them, it was actively participating in the battle. Dr. Moloch's voice trembled with awe. It's enhancing the weapon. It's doing what we can't. Faster than any human could. Torres's hand rested on Mara's shoulder. Then we let it. But remember, the fleet is not gone. This is only a temporary advantage. We've bought time, but we can't become complacent. As the flagship retreated, Mara noticed a new reading on the sensor, something moving beyond the remaining Deathworlder ships. A presence larger than the fleet itself. Slower, but massive enough to dwarf even the flagship. Mara's stomach tightened. Commander, sensors are picking up something huge. Beyond the fleet. It's coming, she said, voice tense. Torres leaned over the console, eyes narrowing. Then we prepare. The AI signal has given us a chance, but the real test is still ahead. That fleet, it's not the only threat. Whatever that is, it's worse. The shadow moved silently through the corridors, pausing near Mara's console. For a moment it seemed almost protective, almost guiding. Its presence was reassuring yet unnerving. A silent reminder that Eco 7 was no longer alone. Mara glanced at the hidden weapon, still pulsing under the signal's guidance. The station had survived the initial Deathworlder assault. The flagship was retreating, and the smaller ships were scattered. For the first time since the SOS arrived, there was a glimmer of hope, but beyond the stars, in the void, something massive stirred. The Deathworlders had been slowed, but the real threat had not yet revealed itself. And Mara knew, with a cold certainty, that Eco 7's fight was far from over. The SOS fragments that had started it all echoed in her mind. Cannot hold. Approaching fast, warn others. The station had survived, the weapon had turned the tide, and the mysterious signal had emerged as an unexpected ally. But the warning was clear. The battle was only part of a much larger war. Mara's hands rested lightly on the console, her eyes scanning the monitors. We've bought time, but something far greater is coming, and when it arrives, we'll need every advantage we can get. Torres nodded, his gaze on the sensors. Then we make every moment count, prepare for the next wave. Eco 7 is not finished yet. Outside, the shadow pulsed faintly, almost in rhythm with the hidden weapon. The AI signal had become a partner in their survival, but even its presence could not guarantee safety. The real challenge, whatever lay beyond the scattered fleet, waited silently, patiently, preparing to strike. The crew of Eco 7 took a moment to breathe, to regroup, to prepare. The tide had turned, but the war was far from over. And in the darkness beyond the fleet, something enormous moved, something ancient, intelligent, and unstoppable. The battle was not finished. The real war was only beginning. The echoes of battle faded slowly through Eco 7. The station groaned, metal flexing under the strain of the recent assault. Smoke still curled in the corridors, sprinklers hissed, and the acrid smell of burned circuits lingered in the air. For a brief moment, silence settled, broken only by the low hum of the hidden weapon. Still pulsing faintly under the guidance of the mysterious signal, Lieutenant Mara Voss sank into her chair at the control console, her hands trembling slightly. She stared at the monitors, scanning the remnants of the Deathworlder fleet. The flagship was gone. The smaller ships were scattered, retreating in disorder. Eco 7 had survived. Against all odds, they had won this battle. Dr. Essian Malik leaned against the console, exhaustion etched into his features. We survived, but at what cost? Sections of the station are critically damaged. Life support is unstable in several sectors. And that signal, it's not just helping us, it's reshaping the weapon, the station, even our sensors. We don't fully understand it. Commander Real Torres nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the sensors. We've bought time, yes, but the warning in the SOS fragments, it was clear, something more is coming. Whatever we face tonight, it was only the beginning. Mara's gaze flicked to the corridors. The shadow had appeared again, moving silently along the walls, observing, almost alive. Unlike before, it now seemed less threatening and more deliberate, almost protective. Mara felt an odd sense of reassurance. The station was no longer completely alone in this fight. Commander Mara said softly, the signal, the shadow, it's like it's been waiting for someone capable of using the weapon. Maybe for us. Torres's jaw tightened. Maybe, but whatever it is, we can't rely on it blindly. Our survival depends on vigilance, planning, and preparation. That fleet will return, and when it does, the real fight begins. Outside, Through the reinforced viewports, the void seemed calm. The scattered Deathworlder ships glinted faintly against the stars, and for the first time in hours, space appeared quiet. But Mara knew better. The darkness held more than just empty void, it held patience, strategy, and intelligence. Dr. Malik turned to Mara. We've learned something important tonight. The Deathworlders adapt, yes, but they can be anticipated if we can think faster than they do. And with that signal, perhaps we have an edge. Mara nodded. An edge, yes. But the larger threat, the one we sensed beyond the fleet, it's coming. The SOS fragments warned us. Whoever sent them knew the scale of what we would face. Torres's eyes darkened. Then we prepare. Repairs, reinforcement, and data analysis. Every system we have, every sensor, every weapon, we make it better. We survived once, but survival alone isn't enough. We need to be ready for what's next. Mara glanced at the hidden weapon. Its pulses were now slower, calmer, almost contemplative. The AI-like signals still guided it, keeping it active, alive. She felt a strange bond with it, an unspoken understanding that their survival was intertwined. The shadow flickered nearby, silently observing as if acknowledging her awareness. Do you think it will stay? Mara asked softly. Malik shrugged. It has a purpose. We might only see it when needed again. For now, it waits. And maybe, just maybe, it's on our side. Torres's voice interrupted the moment. Attention, crew. Emergency repairs are underway. Life support stabilization in sectors 6 and 9. Weapons systems are being recalibrated. Communication arrays are partially restored. Everyone stay alert. And remember, our battle may be won for tonight, but the war is far from over. Mara returned to the console, scanning the stars. The void beyond Eco 7 seemed endless, but she could feel it's the presence of something immense, still out there, watching, calculating. The Deathworlders were only part of the danger. The SOS fragments had warned of something larger, something unstoppable. And yet, there was hope. The crew had survived through courage, intelligence, and the mysterious guiding signal. They had repelled one attack, learned from the fleet, and held their ground. But Mara knew deep down that the calm was temporary. Space was patient, threats were intelligent, and the darkness beyond the scattered fleet held forces far beyond what humans could imagine. She allowed herself one breath, one moment of relief. The station was still intact. The crew was still alive. They had survived against impossible odds. But the shadow flickered again, and Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. The silent observer had not moved far. It had seen everything. And whatever it was, it knew what was coming. The SOS fragments replayed in her mind one last time. The echo of warning and fear intertwining with hope. Cannot hold. Approaching fast. Warn others. Mara clenched her fists, determination hardening within her. Eco 7 had survived the Deathworlders' assault. The station was battered but operational. The crew was alive, and with the mysterious signal guiding them, they had a chance. But the real threat still lurked beyond the stars. And when it arrived, survival would demand everything they had and more. The void waited patiently. The shadow lingered silently. And somewhere out there, the unstoppable force of the unknown prepared to make itself known. Eco 7 had survived the night. But the war had only just begun.